So, welcome everybody to another Wingfoil Experience podcast. And today I have a very special guest. This is a special episode, a first actually. Hi, Adrian Kerr. Say hi to my audience.
Hey everybody, good to be here. I'm feeling a little bit nervous as I'm from a non-winging background, so I feel like maybe I'm going to be attacked here.
No way. I really believe that, so to say, like water sports racism. Could you call that like windsurfers?
Mm,
Like blaming the kite surfers, and the kite surfers are blaming, I don't know, the surfers. I'm really big believer in we should all go out there, have fun together. So
yeah.
I do my best not to attack you.
No, that's. I mean, you're right. Everyone should be on the water. I think the problem is that surfers have done such a bad job at representing the water sports, being so aggressive and stuff like that. I hope that kite surfers and foilers and I'm not going to say windsurfers because they're a little bit that way as well. I hope we are starting to create change and actually looking to be more happier people on the water than a bit miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big believer that we should all consider ourselves as watermen,
Yep.
like doing different water sports and not sticking like being stuck in this paradigm like I'm identifying myself as a windsurfer, as a surfer. I mean, I'm a human being first and foremost, and I do water sports. And if it's only one water sports, okay, cool, but you know, just just
Yep.
go with it and have fun with it.
Definitely. I don't know. I, yeah, absolutely. I think look, if you're into anything, like I come from a sailing background and I still love sailing. I love boats. If you look at my YouTube history is mainly about sailing boats, even more than kite surfing. I watch sailing vlogs and watch people solo sailing. So I definitely agree. People who love the water, just unite.
Nice. So, yeah, you didn't introduce yourself. Maybe you can give our listeners a brief introduction, who Adrian Kerr is, what you do, and how we ended up here.
Yeah, well, I'm actually originally from New Zealand. I live in the Middle East now, and I'm the host of the Kitesurf365 podcast and the co-host of the Megapod podcast. Both those podcasts are on the Kitesurf365 channel, and yeah, the podcast started I think in 2017, which is kind of crazy. And
Hmm.
literally, probably like yourself, Daniel, it started off when I had the idea to start the podcast. Um, I spoke to a few friends. I said, "Hey, I want to do a podcast about kite surfing," and people said it will never work because kite surfing is visual. It's all about the colors. It's all about the kites in the air. And I thought, you know what? I've been on all these kite trips, and I've been at the bar. If you ever go on a kite trip, there's nothing better than kiting all day, drinking all night, talking rubbish. And I thought, hey, this would be kind of cool to catch with these stories. Um, but when I started off recording, I didn't have any street cred. I didn't. No one wanted to talk to me because I had no episodes or no names. So I had to start at the bottom and just work hard and interview people, and then then you get a few breaks, and more people come on, and yeah, 225 episodes later, I'm now on the Wingfoil
Wow.
experience.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but you're definitely here today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're way ahead.
Mm.
Like, yeah, 200 plus episodes, and you started in 2017. That's super cool. And yeah, let's see where the Wingfoil experience gonna end. I
Mm,
hope that we're going down the same route. Um,
absolutely.
what what made you start the podcast? Like, I mean, apart from having the idea, like what led to
Yeah.
it? Is it just passion, or have you been intrigued
Well,
by
I'd actually
talking to pros? Or
Yeah, well, I actually had a podcast before, but it wasn't really becoming. The podcast. The first podcast I had was two guys go to a bar and record a podcast, which basically meant me and my friend just getting absolutely drunk and just recording everything we said. And there was some. I'm not going to say the name because it might be still out there, and I might be sort of held accountable for the things I said. But it actually got some success, and but the problem is, I'm a teacher, and the students at my school found it, and it was all
Mhm.
they and that wasn't really becoming of a teacher in the Middle East. I was teaching Arabic kids, and it started to cause a big problem for me. So I ended up stopping the podcast because potentially. they were saying if you keep doing this, you can't work in the school. So I stopped that. And then I had a break for about 2 years. And so I had all the equipment and I had everything set up. And I was just sort of thinking, you know, I really enjoyed the process,
Mm-hmm.
but it was the wrong topic. So I thought, what's something I love? And I love kite surfing. So I thought, hey, why don't I just do the kite surfing one? And it just spawned off from there. But I mean, that spawned on to many other things. We did I now host the Tangled Lines Live episodes on the Kite Mag, and and there's so many other things have come from the podcast, right? The podcast was the first level, and then so many other things have spawned off that. We did. I sent you the videos. We did the Whaleys last year, which is
Mm-hmm.
kiteboarding's awards show with Colin Carroll, which was fun. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and I hope that you have a similar journey, because it is an amazing journey to start at the bottom and without stealing a line, and work your way to the top, or sort of keep on pushing till you actually are an accepted member of an accepted member of the media within kiteboarding. That's kind of special, and I never take that for granted as well. Every time people reach out to me, I'm always very, very appreciative of their time, and it still kind of trips me out. That I went from knowing nobody to being able to call most people now, so that's cool as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that really resonated with me, that you really enjoyed the process, and that's something that I found for myself. Like, I've also been experimenting with podcasts like a couple of years ago, and I kind of liked it, but I felt like it's not the perfect topic for me. So
Yeah,
when wingfoiling came around, and we're gonna go get to that later. I was not a big believer in wingfoiling
yeah, sure.
at the beginning, but when it clicked with me, I thought, hey, let's start a podcast around that topic, because it's a crazy cool topic I want to talk about. I want to learn also about, and I want to
Mm,
share the things that I learn with other guys. But I also
mm,
really enjoyed the whole process of preparing the preparing the interviews and editing the interviews and talking to the guys. It's awesome, and I can already feel like after
mm,
15 episodes that we got out, and I've got in the backlog, I'm at, this is episode 19 today. um yeah, that it's already so cool that people are reaching out to me, and I can reach out also to other people and say,
mm.
hey, do you want to come on the show? And
Yeah, yeah,
that's
sure.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
um
I mean, and the good thing for you, Daniel, is that things are a lot easier now in podcasting. Back in 2017, even though podcasts had been around, for let's say 6-7 years at that point, it was still hard to get into. That nobody really knew the right equipment. That no one really, the knew about editing, and there wasn't as many hosting platforms or providers, so it was tougher back then. And I made a ton of mistakes. If you listen to my early episodes, the audio quality is terrible. That's just
mhm.
because there wasn't people doing reviews on microphones. There wasn't people doing reviews on digital recorders or interfaces or anything like that. And there was no, everything in the early stage was done on Skype. There was no Zencaster or Zoom, and Skype was notoriously bad for falling out or bad signal. And I do all of mine are online. Almost
Mhm.
all of mine are online. I don't do very, very few face to face, but I have done face to face, and face to face is really easy compared to online. So, everything was against me, and I made so many mistakes. So it's really good to see people like yourself get into it now, and it's just so much clearer and so much easier to get into podcasting now.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I mean, if we were living in a crazy time, like Balz Müller always says something like, what a time to be alive. You can basically, within a day, you can start a new podcast, and you have everything lined up. The hosting, the streaming
Yeah.
services, the the media and everything, and that's super cool. Totally
Yeah.
agree.
I mean, for anyone who wants to get into it, I mean, there's so many good free apps like Anchor and stuff you can do, and it's all free. Again, with free comes at some cost, right? Because you don't own the material and you've got limited bandwidth. I'm putting up, you know, a lot of bandwidth every month. 8 to 9 episodes every month. So I've got a huge amount of outgoings. And that's just not feasible for everyone. But if you want to start something, get out there and do it. If you're passionate
Mm.
about something, just start. And you know what I always say to people, it's hard to be perfect, so strive for consistency, because consistency equals results. So don't worry about putting stuff out. Maybe it's not bad and you're not going to be good straight away. That's natural. Just keep on putting stuff out, and you'll get better, and you'll get better at asking questions. And the best thing is you'll get better at listening.
Totally, totally. There's a famous saying in Germany that you've got two ears and one mouth.
Yeah, yeah,
So
I've
you
heard it in
yeah,
English too.
yeah, totally. And for me, I was in a clubhouse event the other day, and I was invited as a co-host, and the other guy, the other host, pinged me in between and said, "Hey, are you asleep? Are you still listening?" And I was like super proud that I didn't interrupt the guys, because normally I
Yeah,
really like to talk and I like to talk a lot, and I was super proud that I just listened. So that's what you
yeah.
learn in a podcast. So it's good exercise for me. Uh, so man, I'd like to ask a little bit on your background, just briefly. Like you mentioned you're a teacher. What do you teach?
I teach PE, but I mean, I haven't been to work in over a year because of COVID, so everything is online. So I'm a PE teacher. I don't do so much PE these days because I'm more in like leadership positions. So, but I still like to teach PE, but at the moment everything is online education for the last year. So I've been sitting in my recording studio, teaching from here, working from here, basically
Okay.
living it here. So it's been a very very tough year for me on that side.
Yeah. And what is it that you teach? You teach?
Physical education.
Ah, okay. Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not so aware of the English terms. So you started this podcast. You get in touch with a lot of pros. And guys, by the way, check out the Kitesurf365 and the Megapod if you are into kite surfing. Definitely worth listening to it. And lately, you dropped the W bomb, so to say, and you called the one episode Wingsurf 365, right?
Yeah,
And that's how
windsurf
I,
365.
yeah, and it was like a couple of guys picked me and said like, "Hey man, you've been mentioned in a podcast," and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool! My podcast is getting mentioned in another podcast. That's a first."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and
Well,
you've been talking about
I
wing.
actually had
Yeah.
joked about. I'd actually joked about getting wingsurf 365 before because I saw a couple of winging stuff come up, and I thought, oh man, I hope someone doesn't get a wingsurf 365. It's too close to my handle. I mean, I kitesurf 365. I'm very proud of that name because it's quite well known now. So I didn't really want anyone to have a wingsurf 365, but yeah, that was the joke. That was the main joke.
It's true. Um, and I haven't been aware, that I'm actually listening to a lot of podcasts, but I didn't listen to surf podcasts before I started one. It's kind of crazy because I really like podcasts, but I was not aware that your podcast is as big as it is. I did know the name, but it's really cool thing. And for me, it was super cool to get mentioned in it, obviously. And that you also, by the way, if you didn't know the background story, though, Adrian, basically also you found my Instagram or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And you messaged me and was
No,
like, hey,
yeah, no, I added. I had seen one of your episodes, a little snippet come through. I think it was with Gunnar Biniash. I know Gunnar, and then I saw it, and so I sent you a message saying, "Hey, awesome work, man! I love it. Keep going. If you need anything or need any advice, let me know, or you need any introductions." And you were straight back, and I thought, "Hey, this is cool."
yeah, thanks. Thanks for shouting out. I mean, this is like the cool thing about starting something like that or like this podcast is really that people that I don't know started texting me and like, hey, really like the episode and that's so cool. And yeah, it's awesome, to get that feedback because normally what we are doing is we are recording something here in our little room in this private one-on-one chat and we're editing it, we're putting it up there, and actually you never get some feedback, right? It's you are not on the stage. You don't know if people like it. You don't know if people hate it,
Mm,
if it gets through to someone. So getting feedback is like super super cool. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah. I remember
you
when I remember when I put up my first episodes. Oh, wait, 2017. And I remember the first month I had like 400 downloads. And I was thinking, wow, 400 people listen to this shit. I was like, I can't believe 400 people listen to that stuff. It was kind of like, that was mind blowing back then. But, I mean, now it's crazy, right? It's crazy.
Get down.